ZombieTech. Welcome to ZombieTech, a forum for engineers, scientists, and inventors to ponder on the technologies needed to survive the inevitable zombie apocalypse.
She's Addie.
He's Whisker.
And who do we have this week?
This week we have Bob Grundman, a superstar gun, expert.
Okay.
I think that's the easiest way to put it. But he is former Navy. He earned the Expert Pistol Shot Medal, did firearm instruction, also rifle shooting and archery, and used to write for the magazine American Survival Guide. So I think he's pretty much smarter at this stuff than we are.
Well, you.
Well, yes.
You're a freaking East Coaster, man.
I know.
Where I grew up, we learned how to field strip an M16A2 by the time we're like 12.
Guns shot your best friends. That's what we learned. And he just does a whole bunch of cool stuff. Hi, Bob.
Hi there.
How's it going?
Great. How are y'all?
Can't complain. I gotta say, you're like on the top 10% of my favorite guest already because you helped me write the questions.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. No, because I don't know the first thing about guns. The closest I've been to one is like a Nerf gun, and I'm not quite sure that counts. So, yeah.
That could be fixed anytime.
Awesome.
You hear that, all previous ZombieTech guests? You're slackers. Addie says so.
Well, because, I do a lot of research into the person. I do a little stalking and then write the questions. But
I think that's the only real reason why Addie likes doing this show, because it allows her stalking habit to not be creepy.
What? Hey.
I think we've all been accused of that, though.
I'm practicing for the zombie apocalypse, okay? I'm stealthily scoping out the area. Right.
Making sure that you're not living next to the problem children that are going to turn immediately because they don't have any of the survival skills to get through the first day, right?
Exactly. Still in my 10%, Bob. So, question, how did you end up getting interested in guns?
I think it was TV. I grew up with all the Wild Wild West and all that stuff on TV, and it looked fun. And when I got to try it, it was fun, and I learned to shoot in exactly the same place as Brad Pitt's character from Spy Game, Boy Scout Camp.
Ah, okay. Very nice. And so then, for those who don't know a single thing about guns, say like zombie apocalypse hits, apparently the gun store is the place to go. I go and I look at a gun. What do I need to know about a gun?
There's a lot of things. Well, there's a lot of misinformation, and that's part of the problem.
Okay.
That if you go online, that a lot of what you see online is what we call religious wars. Where somebody says, Glock's rule and everything else is garbage, and then someone else has to come in with their side, and you just get an argument, and it's like arguing over dog breeds. Who cares? It's what works for you is the question.
Okay.
And so probably the best place for anybody, if they wanted to start, would be with some instruction. Actually take a class, and a lot of instructors can provide all the hardware that you need, and all you have to bring is like some hearing protection and maybe some glasses, sunglasses or something that will protect your eyes, and a hat, a baseball cap. Because you wear a baseball cap so that the brass can't get between your glasses and your face. Because if that happens with hot brass, you might do something like scream and accidentally shoot in the wrong direction or something.
Oh my gosh, and I have glasses, so if brass gets in between...
So you wear a baseball cap, and that keeps that from happening.
Oh.
Firearms training is a bit like swimming lessons or...
Not really.
Knowing how to... navigate traffic as a pedestrian. It's something that everybody should know how to do, even if you don't plan on doing it every day.
I see what you mean.
Well said. And it would be even if you never bought a gun, it would not be a bad thing to learn a little bit about, like which end the stuff comes out of.
Right.
And things like, for example, you learn not to be quite so afraid of them.
Yeah.
It's like a car. It's something that's in our society, and it's not going to go away anytime soon. And it would be good if you at least understood the basics. But I'd get some instruction. There's some good books. Like, for example, you could get Paxton Quigley's book, Armed and Female.
Oh, I like that. That sounds good.
And she was, and she wrote that book to introduce women to the concept of gun ownership. She starts it from ground zero, takes you through the basics, explains everything.
Sure.
So, and there's tons of good books out, and there's also tons of really good instructors out there. And so the thing to do would be to, if you wanted to go to an online forum and ask a question, the question to ask is, who's a good instructor, not what gun should I get, and then go from there.
Oh, see, I was about to ask, what gun should I get?
Depends on what you're using it for, really.
But and once you try it, you may find that the gun that you thought was perfect for you based on all your research is not perfect.
Okay.
Like when I first fired an airweight Smith & Wesson, it's a little 38 snubby with an aluminum frame. It hurt. Really bad, because the grips I had on it. Once I switched the grips, it was perfectly comfortable.
Gotcha.
No research would have found that out. I had to try it.
Yeah, almost everybody that I've ever met that hasn't had any firearms training and, is somewhat, wary of the whole thing. It seems like the only information they have about firearms in general has to do with what they've seen on the news and what they've heard, like, arguments going on, political argument type of stuff.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
And I have a hard time understanding how, somebody could, like, let their sense of the actual reality of the situation, like, not affect anything in their brain. Because where I grew up, nobody is
wait. What it is,
where I grew up, nobody is using guns to shoot people.
Yeah.
That's not even part of the equation, so nobody even talks about that.
Yeah.
The biggest question is, like, okay, do I use my gun to shoot a duck or a skeet? Do I use it to shoot a target or a deer? If you're a sportsman who's just into the target practice, nobody's going to say that you're, like, less of a man or whatever. It's completely fine. There's not even a stigma with that.
Yeah.
So that's not even that much of an argument. So guns aren't like a debate of whether or not you should or shouldn't have them. It's just like, it's a debate on whether or not you want to spend the money to join the local, range, or if you know somebody with enough land to go shoot on. Because most of my friends, they had enough land to go shoot on, so we didn't need to go to the range.
Sure.
That's the sort of debate I'm used to. So, this firearms, on the East Coast and out West, the whole debate just seems very silly to me, because I grew up around a lot of guns, and you know what? There was never any problem with anyone getting hurt or anyone doing anything stupid with them. And I think that has to do with the fact that everybody has them and everybody knows how to use them.
It's part of the culture. It's part of the culture. Because I didn't know a single person growing up on the East Coast who had a gun.
Gosh.
Not one single person.
Wow.
Yeah. Difficult.
And I'm in the South, and we actually still build high schools with rifle ranges.
That's awesome.
Underground rifle range.
Underground.
High school.
Hey, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Competitive shooting's a big deal in most of the country.
This is for ROTC.
Yeah. Okay.
Junior ROTC.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So when we have a bond issue come through, that's always one of the questions. When you look at what they're going to build, you see, it's got a rifle range. Interesting.
Yeah.
So, different culture.
Yeah. And on this show, I mean, it's kind of obvious.
Well,
zombies show up.
You got to shoot them.
Obviously, most people, even East Coasters, recognize that they would be useful to have around if like zombies trying to bite your face off.
Very true.
Yes, I would say that.
Very true.
Now, unfortunately, one of the worst places to learn about them is the movies, and zombie movies are included in that.
Right. So what's the best and the worst zombie movie in terms of guns?
The worst is really hard to pick because there's so many good choices. For the best, I'm going to have to go with The Dead.
Okay.
The Ford brothers?
I don't think I've seen that one.
Oh.
I know, it's a shame. It's
We've
but
seen so many, sometimes it's hard to keep track.
This is the first zombie art film.
Okay.
It was made by the Ford brothers, the two pair of British brothers who went to Africa and filmed in Africa, and their star nearly died in the process. Yeah, get the DVD. It's worth it. It's really a good film.
So why is that the best?
Well, for gun point of view, because we don't see anything incredibly, ineffably stupid being done. Gun handling has gotten better and better in movies because movie people have started realizing that there are folks out there who actually know what they're doing and can be hired for a reasonable sum.
Mm-hmm.
Heck, I'd work for free on a movie. Let's face it. But but you can hire somebody who knows what they're doing, an ex-Navy SEAL, an ex-Special Forces, an ex-Marine Recon, who will help your actors look good. Look at Tom Cruise in the movie Collateral. You know, the homie, is that my briefcase scene? I mean, that's amazing. Now, I understand they did it with a green screen, with him shooting at a green screen probably for safety purposes, but it's still, you know, it's so far beyond anything we would have seen in the 70s or the 80s in terms of, you know, the skill that actor had acquired for that scene.
Sure.
I mean, he was shooting really, really fast, and he looked really good. I mean, he did it well. And then you see movies like Way of the Gun.
Okay.
With Benicio del Toro and Ryan Phillippe, where we have that long gunfight scene in the used to be it used to be like a mission, and now it's a house of prostitution, and they have a huge gunfight with James Caan's guys. And when you watch the gun handling, it's very impressive, with a few exceptions. There's a few stupid things in there, but not too many. Sure. But in older movies, you see stuff like equivalent of the stormtroopers in Star Wars, where the guns are wobbling all over the places they shoot, that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Never reloading.
Yeah. Yeah, shooting 10 times out of a revolver, or pointing them at each other all the time. That's fun to watch. You know, where you see the muzzles of the guns cover the actor, cover each other and stuff like that. And also, when you had a wonderful interview with Mira Grant, Shannon McGuire, I think is her name.
Yep.
And she said that bad science will drop her out of a movie or a book very quickly, and I'm the same with this subject.
Sure.
And then you have movies like, the bad one, that's hard to pick. The Resident Evil movies are awful in terms of gun handling. Sliding down a rope while shooting guns, things like that.
Oh, but come on. Totally possible.
Flying through the air.
I can't hit crap with a pistol standing still, let alone freaking sliding down a rope. Yeah, absolutely silly.
But I think the absolute nadir has to go to a recent film released by the Asylum, which probably you haven't seen. I have. Abraham Lincoln versus Zombies.
Oh, I heard about that, but no, not yet.
We saw it in the list. We haven't got to it yet.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That was that bad, huh?
Really bad. It's kind of a fun movie because the Abraham Lincoln, I think, is better than the one in the Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter, as far as looking like Lincoln. I don't know if we don't know what his voice sounded like, but
sure, the
actor's actually pretty good. And he goes with his Secret Service on a secret mission to clear a place out that has a zombie outbreak. There's the word we want. And, well, aside from the fact that the Secret Service didn't exist then, and aside from the fact that the Secret Service didn't protect the president until after McKinley was assassinated, let's just forget about that. But, like, one of the Secret Service agents has a flintlock rifle.
Mm-hmm.
This is the Civil War. This is the 1860s. Flintlock had gone out, War of 1812 and the Mexican War. So, this is like a guy in a Vietnam movie using, It's this
an A2 instead of an A1. Only guys like us would notice.
Civil War gun in Alvin York in World War I. I mean, it was completely out of place. And when he goes to fire it, we can see that the frizzen, the little thing that the flint strikes, is already forward. So that means the pan is empty and the gun is empty. And the little flash comes out of the barrel because they've added it with CGI.
Right.
So he's shooting an empty gun. And a lot of the Secret Service agents had guns that were the Colt Single Action Army that came into being in 1873, well after the end of the Civil War.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody ever reloaded. including the muzzle loaders. You know, the long guns were muzzle loaders, and they were shooting them bang, bang, bang. Yeah, it was bad.
Having operated muzzleloaders myself, you don't ever get a bang, bang. You get a bang and then goof off for 10 minutes while you wait for it to actually get put back together. And then again, bang.
Well, if you see Civil War reenacting, you can see how fast they actually could reload. There's some guys there that can. But
yeah, it's also a good way to accidentally shoot that rod back out of it going that fast.
Oh, man.
Wheeling down the range, yes, I've seen it.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. Not a good thing.
Well, how about like Zombieland? Because that's one of my favorites.
That was fun.
Was it pretty good?
Silly, but I mean, because here's the guy with all the rules, right?
Right,
He's got all these rules, and can't think of the actor's name, and he's shooting a double barrel shotgun. You would think that he would have picked up something a little more effective. He was in Austin, Texas, for Pete's sake, when he started out. Couldn't find anything better than a 2-shot gun. Zombies show up in more than 2.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good.
So I mean,
but he didn't shoot like 3 times or something.
Yeah. No, I never saw him. I don't think I remember seeing him fire more than once, but more than 2 shots. But supposedly the guy that knew what he was doing. Although I did like the Woody Harrelson character in the God Rednecks or whatever it was line. Yeah,
that was great. Well then, okay, so we just watched Inception last night.
Oh yes.
How was the guns in there?
I don't recall it that well. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. That's all right. It was a lot of. Well, then I mean, there was a lot of like zero gravity shooting. So I mean, how much reality there is in that? I guess you can't really.
I don't know.
Darn it! I've just answered my own question. Gotcha.
So anyway, one thing that I have seen in some of the zombie movies that really drives me crazy also is just all the non-technology, like when they bring up the revolver and they take the safety off, or where Sarah Polley shoots the Steve zombie, remember the lawyer character in the 2004 Dawn of the Dead, when they leave the mall in the trucks, and she shoots a guy with a revolver and the cylinder never moves. The flash is added, digitally.
Man.
Yeah, that's the problem with watching movies that have anything to do on your expertise.
Yeah,
and
truly.
It's just so hard to watch them.
Truly.
Yeah, well, and they don't use blanks and squibs and stuff now, and I understand. We all know why, because that stuff is more dangerous, right? Especially after John Eric Hexum, right?
What happened? I don't follow that.
It's in a TV show called, what was it, Cover Up or something like that, and it was like it was a silly TV show, and they used the anyway, the concept was some special forces kind of guy that masqueraded as a photographer and a high fashion photographer, and he was hanging out with this woman, and they would go into these situations undercover. And anyway, the actor came out with a revolver one day and put it to his temple and said, "Look, pull the trigger." And he had a blank in it, and he didn't realize that blanks are dangerous.
Oh no.
And it blew a quarter-sized piece of skull deep into his head. Yeah, blanks are really dangerous.
Oh my gosh. Wait, so blanks actually have something in them?
Blanks have powder, and powder has a lot of force.
Oh, you're kidding.
Yeah, if you block the end of the barrel, where's all that gas escaping going to go?
Right, so what are blanks for?
They're to make a loud noise and a flash, but they can't do that without powder, and that's why the movies have moved away from it.
Oh, that explains it. Okay. I didn't realize that. Okay.
If they tend to be kind of loud, so then you have to have things like hearing protection. And it's a lot more complicated than CGI.
Sure.
So CGI is being used a lot now.
Sure.
Now, with that said, any of you guys out there that are into filmmaking, there are a couple of companies out there that are making really good, basically fake guns, but they behave correctly. When you pull the trigger, the cylinders will rotate around, if it's a revolver, it does all of the things it's supposed to do, and you don't run into those kinds of problems as much. But you still need to sort of talk to somebody who knows what they're doing so that they can help you not screw it up.
Right.
That would be good.
So then, like, in terms of the zombie apocalypse, right? And I hesitate to say this a little bit because
Go for it.
we're not really going to have a zombie apocalypse, but
I
we
think that's
totally
the first
are
time
the
I've ever
same.
heard her say that.
What did I say? I didn't say anything. Did I just say anything?
I think we've had confirmation that it is already started, haven't we?
Oh dear.
So then, like, what's the best and worst gun?
Oh, to have?
Yeah. Like, obviously, worst would probably be like a single shot, something that requires.
That would be bad. Rimfire would also be bad. A 22?
What's that?
A 22?
Yeah.
It's occasionally on the gun boards, like, people will say, well, a 22 would be perfect because I can carry lots of ammo. And a 22 will, penetrate a skull. Yes, it will if you make a really good shot. But there have been lots of cases of people getting shot in the head with handguns, and the bullet hits the skull and scoots around the edges of the skull under the skin and exits.
Rim shot. Oh my gosh. I'm mortified.
And so, also,
Holy bucket.
handguns are underpowered. All handguns are underpowered.
Okay, so that probably would not be the first.
My favorite gun in the Navy was an M2, but I can't carry that. It's a little heavy.
Yeah.
That's a 50 caliber belt-fed machine gun. Weighs about 100 pounds. The ammo, a single round of ammo is about 5-6 inches long. The thing is massive.
Jesus.
Well, we mounted it on a ship. We didn't have to carry it anywhere.
Right.
So it was
huge.
a lot of fun.
Target practice.
Oh, it was fun.
It's a shark.
No, we shot killer tomatoes.
Killer tomatoes.
He called them. It's a 6 foot, more or less diameter inflatable target. It's big,
okay.
red, and they kick it out, and it bounces around on top of the waves, and it moves, and the wind picks it up and takes it, and
that's interesting.
And it absorbs a lot of bullets before it sinks.
So then, but you guys go back down and get it, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
We can't leave it. In fact, once we had one that we'd shot at, and we had a Helen Keller kind of system. We had a 76 millimeter gun that's controlled by radar, and we didn't hit it. And so we pulled up alongside it, and our CO, our captain, grabbed an M60 machine gun, which is a Vietnam era 30 cal machine gun, 7.62 millimeter, and put about 2 belts into the thing to put it down.
Oh.
About 200 shots.
Oh my gosh.
At close range. It was fun to watch.
And can you reuse shells?
The Navy doesn't, but yes, you can.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Depending. There's the answer is usually yes.
Okay.
It depends. Like rimfires, the 22s, those are disposable because you can't reprime them.
Okay.
So the priming is spun in by a machine.
Okay.
But yeah, regular pistol and rifle ammo you can reload.
Reuse, recycle, right? We can
Absolutely.
be green about zombie killing.
Absolutely. And so you were asking, what would I choose as a gun?
Yeah.
Well, if we first say that all handguns are underpowered, all handguns then have issues if you've got to stop a zombie at close range and he's coming at you. So it depends on what you were thinking. If you were in an urban environment and you thought that your distances would always be really short, maybe a shotgun would be good. You were going to be staying in one place, a shotgun would be a good choice.
Okay.
Because the only problem with shotguns is the ammo is heavy and the ammo is bulky.
Okay.
And so to carry a lot of it would be almost impossible. So you wouldn't go across the country with this.
You need your own linebacker.
You would need a gun bearer. Yes.
Okay.
Also, a shotgun doesn't hold a lot of shots unless
Right.
it's something like pronounce it Saiga, the AK-47 shotgun.
Okay.
But most pump action or semi-auto shotguns hold somewhere in the depending on if you've left the piece of doweling in the magazine tube. Even with full capacity, you're usually looking at about 5 shots.
Oh, that's not very
With an
many.
extended magazine, 7, 8, 9, maybe 10 with a long barrel and a long extended magazine.
Yeah.
So that's not a lot of shooting before you got to reload.
Right.
If it's up close and personal and Zach is 5 feet away, that shotgun to the head will probably work, where the 22 to the head might not.
You might get a rim shot.
Yes, you might scoot along the skull.
Yeah.
Although shotguns aren't like they are in the movies, so they won't pick him up and throw him through the wall.
Right.
And you do actually have to aim them.
Yeah, that guy Newton might have something to say about the whole zombies flying backwards thing.
Yeah. Well, now if we could use a 76 millimeter, cannon from a ship, then that would work.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
but anyway, the other thing with the shotgun is across at normal shotgun distances of maybe 20 feet, 30 feet. The pattern is usually about the size of one or two fists.
So
So
he's a Navy guy. His idea of appropriate weaponry is a little bit strange because they don't really deal with it in a running around situation. They're more of a I'm standing on a deck shooting stuff that doesn't shoot back sort of thing. I'm an Army guy, so my
is this a Navy versus Army thing?
My choice is a little bit closer to like an M16A2 or something. It's light enough to carry. The problem is you got to make sure that you don't let it get dirty, wet, whatever. And you have to be able to have a source of ammunition for it. It's not necessarily something you're just going to be able to go into
I'm not carrying the bullets.
Walmart and take care of as easily.
Haven't you seen Under Siege?
No.
Under Siege with Steven Seagal, where they take over a ship. Well, ships do have an armory, and ships do practice repelling boarders, and ships do also practice going after an intruder on the ship.
Sure.
And I was on a small combatant, but yeah, we practiced that. So we had M14s, Mossberg 500 12-gauge shotguns, 1911 A1 45 pistols, and then bigger stuff if we needed it.
I told Whisker I would do
still,
a sniper.
You don't lay in the mud to shoot
like
them.
a sniper rifle or something.
Oh no! And in fact, after it was great. We go out on the flight deck on the fantail, and our funnest day of shooting was the day that we were being buzzed by Soviet Bear bombers. We were in the Sea of Japan. We were in the South China Sea. No, we were in the Sea of Japan. That's right, Sea of Japan. And there were Soviet Bear bombers going overhead occasionally, and they'd be escorted by a couple of F-14s. Tells you how long ago it was. And we're out shooting, and we'd have to stop so that the Soviets didn't think we were shooting at them.
Oh.
Yeah. That could get awkward quickly.
Yeah, it was really fun. But you'd go out when it was time to toss trash, and go out and shoot at the trash with an M14. And then the fun part was you could hand it to the gunner's mate and say, "Thank you, gunner's mate," and he would clean it.
That's the easy way out, guys.
Hackers.
And since he was in charge of the gun and responsible for it, he didn't want you to clean it because you might screw it up.
Yeah.
Right.
And especially the M60s, because the M60 is designed in such a way that you can easily assemble it wrong. And you don't find out until it's time to shoot it again.
And then it's too late.
Then it's too late.
Oh, man.
So anyway, so if it was close up, if I was bugging in, if I was planning to survive the zombie apocalypse in a fixed location, I want a shotgun.
Okay.
Because then Zach's not going to be coming in big numbers. I'm not going to have to face him out in the open, so I want a shotgun.
Right.
If I'm going to be out in the open and moving around, I want a centerfire rifle. And I want a semi-automatic.
Okay.
Full auto is for wimps. Full auto is for people who have way more money and time and ammo than everybody else.
Okay.
Because it wastes ammo.
Right.
Yeah, one of the nicest weapons for this sort of thing would probably be, I mean, if you had the ammo for it, maybe a Kalashnikov. They're really they don't break down easy in the field. They're cheap. You can get parts for them. Yeah.
Well, they're not as cheap as they used to be, but the AK does work. The only problem with the AK is if you needed to reach out and touch Zach at a distance, it won't do that very well.
So it's got a limited...
100 yards, you're shooting dinner plate size groups or bigger. Most people, because of the sights are crappy. But if you put better sights on it, you can upgrade them. I have my own personal favorites, but I like the Garand.
Okay.
The World War II.
Yeah, it's a nice one.
What's the best sniper rifle? I'm a distance person.
You're getting into strange science there.
Yeah, that's a really tiny part of the gun community.
Come on, folks.
A lot of those guys modify the heck out of whatever they're using, so it's a little bit...
So there's no stock amazing.
They're custom, the ammo. I mean, you want to start talking about turned case necks on ammo where they they'll start with 100 brass cases and weigh them all and throw half of them out because they weren't exactly the same weight, and then they start cleaning them and polishing them, and it's great. Oh yeah, but they can take, well, heck, wasn't it Carlos Hathcock? He he shot a Vietnamese at a mile in Vietnam.
Jeez.
But he used an M2. He used a 50 caliber machine gun. He had a scope on top of it.
Oh my gosh. A mile away?
A mile away.
Oh,
It was a guy on a bicycle.
wow.
The guy was shooting at him at the time, of course, completely ineffectively, but he fired
Right.
back and shot him with a. And you can shoot single shots with an M2. It's got a slow cyclic rate.
Right.
That's what he practiced. The sniper question is kind of a specialized area, and most of us wouldn't be shooting a sniper rifle per se at a zombie. We'd be worried about something that was getting close enough to be dangerous, but anything beyond that, we'd probably just let it go, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
Now, I wouldn't complain about
don't
having
know.
a sniper on my team. I mean, that's
I-
useful,
Can I
but
be the sniper?
by themselves, not so useful.
Well, here's my only complaint about it. The darn guy makes noise.
Oh.
And this is one thing I bugs the heck out
Wait,
of me.
why would a sniper rifle make noise?
All rifles make noise.
I guess, but
Well, it's supersonic. You can't silence it.
yeah.
It makes noise. And so that's something that bugs the heck out of me with all these zombie movies is they're shooting. And then at some point, sometimes they talk about, how the zombies are attracted to the noise, and then they go shooting.
Yeah. Yep. And it's like,
I've never seen anybody in a zombie movie build a silencer or take any other steps to try to be a little quieter.
right.
Except that awful, what was it, Zombie Apocalypse that came out on Sci-Fi with Ving Rhames.
Oh, which one was that?
That's the one with the zombie tiger.
The zombie
Yeah,
tiger?
we saw that one. Yeah.
What
And
zombie
there they had
tiger?
the archery club, and those folks were using
Mhm.
bows and arrows because they were quiet.
Yeah. So,
Oh, I remember that
Yes,
one.
yes,
yeah,
yes.
they were smart.
yeah.
I remember that.
And we've had a lot of smart people on this show who are engineers and know how to build things that don't make noise, like
Well-
microwave death rays and stuff like that.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
we talk to people all the time that can actually build stuff like that, so that's fun.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, and in kind of to elaborate slightly on Addie's question on the sniper rifle, the one good thing about it though would be to be able to reach out and not have to deal with the virus question. Because after reading Feed, I'm all freaked out about
Yeah, yeah. On this show,
Good book, right?
we usually mention that the worst kind would be an airborne thing, and we
Yes.
really don't even want to talk about it because honestly,
Yeah.
humanity
just-
would lose.
Yeah.
or even just a bloodborne pathogen. If it's spraying, and you see all those zombie movies where they're
Yeah,
covered in bits and pieces, and you think,
Yeah.
did they have their eyes closed for the whole thing? I mean, if they have some little cut or something, if they
Scrape or anything like that.
anything that day, they're dead.
Yep.
yeah.
So-
And when you're making a movie, sometimes you've gotta draw a line where you're like, I want my movie to be fun, and I want at least some of my characters to survive. So I'm gonna have to ignore some of the realities of how.
And nobody wants to go through the apocalypse in an NBC suit.
Yep.
No.
Those things that's a form of torture.
Yeah, I've been in MOP 4, and
Yeah, it's awful. It's awful. We got out of the gas masks and everything as quick as possible when we had to wear them.
Eddie looks very confused at the moment.
When
Like-
you seal up the human body in carbon.
Is it like those big yellowy?
Yeah, all the suits.
Oh.
Yeah, watch Breaking Bad or something like that and think, how fun would that be if you didn't have really good air conditioning?
Sure. I was thinking Monsters Inc. You know, when those people come and decontaminate the sock.
Mhm, yeah.
Those people don't stay in those suits for very long. Unless they're in San Francisco or Seattle or it's so cold in the fall. But
And you
not-
can say that because you're from there.
Yeah, but not in South, like southern New Mexico.
Oh, no.
It's 115.
Yeah,
You'd last
no.
about 2 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then you just keel over.
But we do have someone who made a heat suit who, has temperature regulation inside his suit. So who knows?
We have
we
strange friends.
We can get him on our team to make
do.
a cooling
Yes, you
suit.
do.
Yeah.
He likes his suit for the zombie apocalypse because it's got a positive internal pressure. So even if it gets punctured, nothing's going in the hole.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, you could make your own with just a rain suit and rain boots and a gas mask and duct tape. And you could kind of duct
Yeah.
tape yourself in. You just wouldn't want to stay in that thing for a long time. But if you wanted to go outside for a few minutes and maybe deal with something that was breaking in and take them from the flank or something and get rid of them, then you might want to suit up.
Yeah.
Oh, the other thing we don't ever see in zombie movies except 28 Days Later is the shield. Wouldn't that be a nice thing to have?
Shield would be nice. Because it can act as a weapon, too.
Exactly, and it keeps them at that distance. It keeps our Zed friend from biting us.
Yeah. Now, we're going to go to shields in just a little bit, but
Okay.
there was an interesting concept that you had, well, you sent me, and I wanted to bring up. This everyday carry concept.
Oh yeah.
What is it, first of all? And I actually think, because I'm a nurse, so I already carry, every day I already carry certain items like a pen light,
Good.
like Band-Aids, like, I don't know, candy, just so that if anybody's has a diabetic crisis, then,
or
you know.
hypoglycemic or
Yeah,
something.
exactly.
I carry my coffee every morning up to the studio.
There you go. Yeah.
That's Whiskers everyday carry.
EDC stands for everyday carry.
Okay.
And the idea of coming and there's entire internet forums dedicated to just that one subject.
Okay.
And people discuss endlessly ad nauseum exactly what are the things that I should have for my own personal EDC. And there's a whole bunch of different points of view on this.
Mm-hmm.
There was one guy who saved himself and some of his companions on 9/11. They were I can't remember. I don't think I'm trying to remember if they were under one of the Twin Towers or if they ended up under one of the other buildings, but they ended up under a collapsing building or collapsed building.
Mm-hmm.
And they were faced with these really thick glass windows they couldn't break.
Mm-hmm.
He shot their way through.
Nice.
So he fired, broke the glass, they got out. Had he not had the pistol,
Yeah.
he wouldn't have gotten out.
Right.
So some people would add that and consider that part of their EDC. But the typical things that you'll see in somebody's EDC, most people, would be stuff like a cell phone. That's a good one, for
Mm-hmm.
communications, right? Also for the camera, because if you're in communication with the CDC and you want to find out if somebody's infected, you take a picture, right?
Right.
Let's see. What
Is
else?
that just a bad skin day, bad acne day, or is that actually zombie face?
Or is this
Right.
is this an infection?
Right.
Maybe a water bottle, because
Yep.
a lot of people now, men are carrying messenger bags. We don't call them man purse. That word is not in the vocab
Merce.
in the South. Purse, purse, we say messenger bag, or canvas bag, or something like that, because that
something manly.
sounds
Right.
macho. A lot of guys carry messenger bags. They'll have a bottle of water. They'll
Okay.
have a cell phone, an LED light, not
Yeah.
a regular light, an LED light.
Right. Long lasting.
Mm-hmm.
'Cause
And
you
the
never
bulb
know.
out when you're crawling around in the basement
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
after the power goes out.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're Milton in Office Space and you get stuck down in the basement and the power goes out, you want a light.
And a red
first,
stapler.
a first aid, yes, a red stapler. A first aid kit, maybe. A few Band-Aids, maybe
Yeah.
you could take a military compress, the ones that have because that has the everything to basically bandage a serious wound and stop it from bleeding and get out alive.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe a few basic tools. Some people carry like little itty bitty pry bars with them or bigger
Wow.
pry bars.
Oh.
A lot of office workers now who play the EDC game consider a small pry bar an essential item because they might need it to get out of their building if the power goes out.
Sure. Sure.
Some of those buildings have electronic locks and things,
Right.
or if they get stuck in something.
Right.
Anyway, let's see what's some of the.
So then,
others.
what do you have?
What do I have?
Yeah,
Oh, I'm a geek, so I've got a lot of stuff.
that's okay. We like geeks here.
I follow the 2 is 1 and 1 is none rule.
What's that?
It's the idea that say that you've got a flashlight and you pull that bad boy out and you drop it. And
Yeah.
It breaks. Now
Yeah.
you've got nothing. So 1 was none. If you carried 2 flashlights, now you've got a second light and you pull out the backup light and you keep going.
Fair enough. Just don't
So-
drop it.
Yeah, so on the
Right.
really important stuff. So sometimes I have 2 cell phones on me. Now one is a work cell phone, but sometimes, in the case of a cell phone, I might have 2 cell phones on me because I've been to work or I'm coming home from work, whatever.
Mhm.
But if there was an emergency and my battery died, I could switch to the other cell phone and make a 911 call.
Mhm.
LED light. I usually have one in my pocket and one in my bag. Backup light. Plus, I have another light in the glove box of the car, and that's a modified mag light. I take the 2C cell, the one that's 2C batteries, plastic sleeve inside, and you put 3 CR123A camera batteries in there, and then a 6-cell xenon, 6-cell xenon or krypton? 6-cell xenon bulb in there, and you get a very powerful, lightweight flashlight.
Nice.
Yeah, it's cool. That's candlepowerforums.com, and you can learn more than you ever wanted to know about flashlights. Anyway, but you get the idea. Light, communication, basic tools, first aid, writing instrument, paper. That might be really important to be able to leave a note about where you were going or who's with the group. You know, say you leave the place where people are expecting to find you.
Appalachian Trail style.
Yeah.
And then maybe a Swiss Army knife. I've got a Swiss Army knife and a little Leatherman.
Yeah, that's what we have. We have a whole bunch of Leathermans.
And
So.
in my bag, I keep a little zipper pouch, like a pencil bag. And inside, then I also have some small screws, a couple of small nails, because sometimes just a little pin or something. I have safety pins. I have a couple of paper clips. I've got some duct tape. I've got a pencil. I've got stuff for making fire. So I've got a
Nice.
book of matches in plastic and a lighter. You know, just basic things, because I'm thinking, you know, what if I get stuck on the way home? So I have a few basic tools, and it's small enough for me to drop it in a pocket and keep going.
Sure.
Some people carry multiple water bottles because they think if I get stuck, if power goes out and I'm going to have to hoof it home, say, like if you ever read 1 Second After, you know, like an electromagnetic pulse, sunspot, something like that. My car won't start. If they have a couple of water bottles, at least here in the South, if it's summer, if you don't have a couple of water bottles, you're not going to make it home.
Right.
So anyway, that's the EDC concept. Tools that you might think that you need. And some people include a handgun or a larger knife.
Yeah.
And they're thinking self-defense. I like a cane.
Oh.
It's, you know, an orthopedic. So I mean, I've sprained an ankle before. If you injure yourself trying to hike home, a good pair of shoes is another one. Put in your car.
Sure.
Because a lot of people are wearing work shoes. Those look nice, but they're not comfortable.
Sure.
So anyway, those are just examples. And I like a cane because it can help me get home. And at the same time, if I needed to protect myself against something, the only thing I've ever had to use one on was dogs, just to back them off.
Right.
And
So actually, for those who can't use or who would rather not use guns,
or who work at a place with a company policy that says we find a gun in your car, you're fired.
right, then they can use a cane.
Like working in a hospital or something like that. Yeah, they could have a cane in their car.
Yep. And actually, you have done Filipino martial arts and
Stick fighting.
stick fighting, right? Yeah.
So a cane can be used as a stick, obviously.
Right. Now, do you think that martial arts would be very useful against zombies?
You know, it can't hurt, can it? Because
Well,
when
I guess not.
you're reloading and one of them goes and tries to grab you, wouldn't it be nice if you understood enough body mechanics to know how to toss him off you?
True.
Like you can grab the wrist and you start rotating it and you hit the elbow the wrong way, so you lock out the arm, and now you've got a handle to move the zombie around without having to get near the mouth.
Yeah.
Now,
I've been in training for a while. I'll like not feed Addie for a couple days and then try to get away from her when she tries to bite me. Yeah, it's pretty effective. I mean,
I taught my wife some of these, and I'm much bigger than she is, and she can put me on the floor in a couple of seconds.
Well, that's cool.
And, you know, as long as it was a pretty fresh one so the joints still work.
Yeah.
An older one, you know, you're going to start doing something. Suddenly you got an arm and the zombie's coming at you again. But at least now you got something to swing at them.
Oh, man. Oh, gross. Wear some gloves.
Now, with that said, if this is any sort of a bloodborne or airborne pathogen, the general idea is to stay away from the zombies.
Yeah.
But, the other thing is that gets mentioned in a few of the zombie movies, like the original Dawn of the Dead, is one of your biggest threats might not be the zombies. Might be the other people.
Correct.
Yeah, I've said that many times on this show that I'm more worried about the neighbors than I am the zombies.
Yeah.
We have very nice neighbors, don't get me wrong, but I mean, when
Well, when they get
starvation
hungry,
is,
like I just said,
yeah, when
you'll bite me
starvation-
after 2 days. Give them a week, and I'm sure they'll be coming
so
over here
not
to.
true.
Well, not even the neighbors. Think about this. Think that you're sitting in your home. You've decided to bug in. You've closed up all the windows nicely. You've braced and barricaded everything, and now you see a group of zombies. You wake up to a scream, and you see a group of zombies coming out of your neighbor's house,
Right.
and they start across the street to your house.
Right.
What do you do? Well, what if those zombies? What if now we're talking about? What if those are just a group of rough-looking men?
Right.
And they're going down the street house to house, and they got a shopping cart, and they got a ladder, and they got a couple of axes.
Yep.
That's
I don't know what I would do. What would you do?
You don't have to worry about it. I'll deal with that.
Well, that brings up another thing. I hear people occasionally say, I could never use a gun.
Yeah.
And are those people going to survive? And I think they will survive if they have friends who are willing
To
to.
use guns, yeah.
We brought up Mir Grant earlier, and I think she pretty much had it right.
She has
the
a
same,
machete connection,
the same
though.
part. No, the same kind of people who think that they wouldn't be able to use a gun are the same people who are like currently on a diet or something, and they're not going to last a week. They're not going to be around long enough to even run into that situation. I don't think.
Right?
They just don't have enough.
Macho-ness.
Real world, like not macho-ness. It's just like there's a difference between somebody who exists completely in the cradle of society and somebody who, has
willing to take it by
taken
the
the time
balls.
to figure out how the real world actually works. Outside of our, civilization's little safety net. There's a real, rules out there of how your body functions and how you to interact with your environment to not die in a week.
Sure.
Yeah. Well, there's 3 rules that would apply very well to the zombie apocalypse and are also taught in self-defense. And the first one is don't hang out with stupid people.
Yep.
The second is don't go to stupid places.
Yep.
And the third is don't do stupid things.
Like pee when you're trying to run away from a zombie.
Yeah, no potty breaks in the zombie apocalypse.
No. You just keep going.
You can see this over and over in people that get in trouble now. They're in a bar, and they get in an argument. Why were you in a seedy bar in a bad part of town at 2 a.m?
Yeah. Yep.
I was there with my friends. Well, those really your friends?
Or are you just buying them drinks?
Yeah. So if your
yeah.
friends are the ones who get the great idea, let's go to the Winchester. Maybe that isn't the friend you could be hanging out with.
Yeah, that's a good point. So, we don't have that much time left, which is crazy. But I wanted to change completely from guns.
Certainly.
Yeah, because you were also involved in the Society for Creative Anachronism.
Yes.
So for those who don't know, because I didn't know what it was until you brought it up, what is it, and what did you do in it?
It's a group that creates the Middle Ages not as they were, but as they should have been.
Bunch of nerds. Yeah.
It's the Middle Ages with the germ theory of disease. So you wash your hands.
Right.
It's the Middle Ages with first aid kits and understanding the importance of hydration when you're fighting in hot weather.
Yep.
But they do medieval combat in real armor, fully real armor, full weight, full material, steel and leather and brass and all that fun stuff. And they use rattan sticks as swords. They put hilts on them and everything, and those things will hit as hard as a real medieval broadsword does.
Impressive.
So if you're not wearing good armor, it will kill you. No, it'll kill you. It will kill you. And while I was in, I had friends who had some pretty good injuries. Broken jaw.
Oh my gosh.
At an Aidenvelt war. A friend of mine had a rib broken. Another friend got hit in the hand and had a spiral fracture that went up his arm. My only injury was I got hit in the thumb by an axe, and my thumb plate had lifted off a bit, and so the axe blade, a rattan axe blade, the foam behind it, but still hit really hard. It jammed the thumbnail about 1/8 of an inch back into the thumb. That's an owie.
Ow. Mother of goodness.
It hurt. It hurt really bad.
So then, do you guys, hit each other and say sorry?
No.
Or do you just keep moving on?
You judge your own hits, and you're fighting as if you're in a light chain, like a chain mail hauberk with an open-faced helm. So
Man.
if you get so even though you have full face protection, you get hit in the face with an arrow, you're dead. Somebody hits you a good wallop upside the ribs, you're dead, and you fall down,
Oh, I
cover
see.
yourself up with your shield, and the fight goes on.
I see.
And they hold wars with hundreds on a side.
I see.
So anyway, this might apply in some way to the zombie apocalypse in the sense that you understand how to use a sword.
Right.
And a sword is a really tough weapon to use.
Because it's heavy and
It's a sword is a whole art all by itself, and in fact, even the stick jocks in the SCA, as they're called, stick jocks, don't understand swords because they're swinging sticks, and a sword swings differently because it's flat.
right.
And it can get stuck in things. And a sword is actually a fairly fragile weapon compared to what people think. You don't smash sword against sword a lot. You don't swing it into hard objects unless you don't like your sword, because you can nick it. You can ding blade.
I hate you, sword. Hit a tree.
So, like the scene in Highlander with the sword stuck in the concrete pillar, that would break the sword. It wouldn't come out. Wouldn't get it out. It would break probably. Anyway, so, but you could learn some skills, and like the character in 28 Days Later who's holding off the top of the stairwell in that building, Brendan Fraser, I think is the actor, and he has a riot shield. And I think he has a baton, a riot shield, a baton, and a full face riot helmet.
Yep.
A full face shield.
Yep.
That makes a heck of a lot of sense. And so a shield allows you to keep the zombie back, and you learn how to do the scorpion type hits with your sword or your mace or your axe, which it means that the arm, your sword arm is the back arm, your shield arm is the front arm, right? And you stay behind the shield. The sword hand goes up, 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 and when it's actually the elbows bend a bit. You don't have a straight elbow because you can hyperextend. But when the arm reaches pretty much its highest point, then that sword blade comes arcing down, and the back edge of the sword blade hits the back of their head.
Ouch.
You could also do it with a mace. You could also do it with the back spike on an axe.
Huh. So then let me ask, you're also an armorer, right? And is that like hardcore blacksmithing, like clang against metal?
You're working with sheet metal, so
Okay.
I'm built an anvil.
Okay.
And I've got a bunch of ball peen hammers, and I can dish, and I can planish, and I can do articulation, where you make the elbows and knees that move with the different pieces that all are riveted together and move.
So you could totally
it's a
make
whole show by itself right there.
I know it is.
You could armor a human body pretty well, but there's never perfect armor if you're going to move.
Right.
Yeah, Iron Man would be pretty tough to build. But if you look at medieval armor and you start thinking, could I get in there and bite? The answer is usually you could. Now, they did stuff like they would wear a thing called a gambeson, and they'd have chainmail on like the insides of the elbows and in the armpits and around the neck.
Yeah.
They'd put the armor over it because those are hard places to armor.
Right.
The backs of the knees, the place you sit on is a very difficult place to armor.
Sure.
So they'd wear some.
It's like armor chaps.
Yeah, and especially if you're going to sit a horse, then when you get off the horse, your backside is unprotected.
Right.
So you'd have different armor for fighting on foot. It would have something called usually a fald. It looks like a skirt, and it could be made of bands of metal, like Roman stuff, or it could be a chainmail fald, or it could be you could have a hauberk, which comes to the knees.
Yeah.
Comes past the hips. Basically like a body armor garment. You could do something in lamellar with aluminum. That'd be pretty light. Lamellar is scales that are laced to each other.
Well, you know what? I think I'm just gonna let you design the armor for the zombie apocalypse team. Because we actually have another blacksmith on our team, Nickel Plate. We interviewed him about 2-3 weeks ago, I think, 3, 4, maybe something like that. And he's started getting into blacksmithing, and heck yeah, 2 blacksmiths on one team.
Yep.
Go us! Woohoo!
Swords because they're really hard to make.
Well, that's okay. I'm not worried about that.
Think about trying to heat treat something that's a yard long. You got to heat the whole thing up in a forge.
Yeah.
And then quench it all at once. It's really easy to have a sword blade warp while you're making it. Make all that work, do all that work, and then it gets ruined. It warped. It gets ruined in the heat treat.
Right.
And then you got to try to heat it back up, but you can only do that so many times. So swords are hard to make. That's why spears were popular. Much less metal. You could make spears pretty easily.
Mhm.
It'd be
Yeah.
really interesting to see what one could achieve if you took all of the wisdom of the ages that has gone into designing armor and then throw out the material limitations of those periods and work with modern composite
We could
materials.
talk about that. I've spent a lot of time studying.
Well, we don't have enough time to, but I think that would be a really
we should.
interesting conversation. You know, carbon fiber armor would be probably pretty cool.
Kevlar would be pretty cool because it resists puncture.
Yep.
So actually, maybe something like a Kevlar type suit, a thin Kevlar that would resist bites because you're not having to resist bullets, so you don't have as much. Actually, they had something like that in World War Z, I think. They had puncture-proof uniforms, or puncture-resistant uniforms. And then you can just start armoring the places that are exposed. The hands, the feet, you can do boots. That's not real hard. The
Right.
neck, the face, and the head are the hard part.
Right. Just
Yeah.
don't let the zombies get close enough.
But you can, but there's solutions to all of that. So
Right.
um
Well, I I want to. If it were up to me, we'd keep going. But since I am limited by time, we're gonna ask the actual ZombieTech questions. So, first question: what 3 tools would you bring to a zombie apocalypse?
One of my answers cannot be Mira Grant, can it?
Sure. We've never kept anybody from being in person, but she's a pretty
Just
good
be aware
tool.
that her cats will probably jump in the suitcase that you try to kidnap her with.
It's true.
That wouldn't get along with mine, so maybe that's a non-starter. Did I go with an M1 Garand? And you can do something with an M1 that you can't that seems to get ignored in all those movies, and that's in fact in Abraham Lincoln versus Zombies, a guy fires his musket, and then the zombie gets close. So what does he do? Does he butt stroke the zombie? No, he drops it and goes hand to hand. Oh. So you could get an M1 Garand, you can put a bayonet on that thing to help
Nice.
keep the muzzle clear of nasty stuff.
Yep.
I would want a really
And
good first aid kit.
For those of you who aren't like really up on this sort of thing, basically the combination that he's talking about, like right there, is exactly what an engineer would have carried in the wars in which they used that particular weapon. So that's what the engineers would have been issued.
I see.
So most of our listeners tend to be engineers.
Yep.
It's a highly appropriate weapon combination for you guys.
Sure.
Yeah. Although you know what, I might want to modify that bayonet and go with something like a blunt spike, to poke instead of have an edge. Anyway, but an M1 Garand, a really good first aid kit,
Okay.
and a water filter.
Okay. All right. I can handle that.
He's with me on the water topic.
Yeah.
He's done the math.
Wait.
Hydrator, you can only last a couple of days.
Yep.
And after about 2 days, you start getting hallucinating and get weak, and it's
Yep.
bad.
None of that. And then the book that you would bring to enlighten our library at the Zombie Apocalypse Bunker, what would that be?
Gosh, there's so many. How about Lord of the Rings?
Okay.
3 books.
We can handle that because
3 books that are readable
it's like
and
in a
readable
trilogy
and readable.
set.
Read
so
it
I'll take
over.
it.
You can read it aloud.
Yeah.
If the information isn't already in your head, you're probably in trouble anyway.
Okay. Yep, that's a good point. Quick, zombies coming after me. I need to figure out how to kill. All right, dead.
Yeah.
Too bad. So sad.
How do I reload this gun?
Get you.
Well, that's when you
Otherwise-
get training before you get the hardware. Software before the hardware.
Right. So, gosh, are there any websites that you wanted to advertise, or like where we can find your stuff, or?
Well, let's see. I've posted occasionally on the Zombie Squad.
Okay. And we talked to them actually.
Yeah, they're nice folks. I heard
Yeah.
that podcast.
Yep.
I also I like a number of podcasts and blogs for getting information. There's lots of good information out there. If you wanted to actually learn about this stuff, you could go to some of the trainers and see their websites. People like Masad Ayub or John Farnham, NAM, I think, and he does a series of quips. He does like every few days he comes out with another little snippet of information.
Okay.
Usually often about something stupid that somebody did. Why it was a bad idea. But also historical topics and a bunch of other things. Oleg Volk has a really good blog, if you know him.
Okay.
He's the one who honchos the highroad.org website,
Okay.
the big gun discussion group.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of good places to go.
So newbies like myself won't be like shunned, right?
No, I would still no.
Okay.
Although it's always better to lurk before you post.
Sure.
But I would really recommend a good book like Armed and Female by Paxton Quigley. And there's also one called The Concealed Handgun Manual, I think is the title, and it's by a guy named Chris Bird, B-I-R-D, Chris spelled the usual way.
Okay.
And that's starting from zero, how guns work, what they are. Now his is, it's toward carrying of a concealed handgun, so he doesn't address rifles.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you really want an interesting book and an unusual book, there's one called The Book of Two Guns by Tiger McKee.
Okay.
MCKEE.
Okay.
And it's his notes from being at several shooting schools. It's all his shooting notes. And it's based on the 1911, the old style 45 pistol, and the AR-15/M16, etc., /M4 rifle. But it has a lot of stuff that applies to a lot of things like footwork and reloading and dealing with malfunctions and like the idea retention, when someone's trying to take it away from you.
Right.
All that stuff.
Cool.
Really.
All right. Well, there's a whole bunch of extra information there. Awesome.
Yeah.
And there's a good movies out there, aren't there?
Oh yeah.
Yes,
well, we covered a
always.
lot of those.
Always.
All right. Well, I guess that's all the time we have
Sad.
for this week, guys. Thank you for coming in and hanging out with us this week.
All right, guys.
So you guys can find this show every Thursday at ZombieTech.tv.
Correct.
And usually put it up in the evening, so you pretty much have a guaranteed hour listen on Friday morning on your phone or whatever. It's all set up with RSS and whatnot. So hook that up and you'll get your Zombie Tech every week. That's it for us for this week. We'll see you guys next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.